Speaking of
Canada's
ridiculous,
not much better.
Creepy Redneck Dinosaur Mansion 3
Yeah.
is the next
Yay.
game that I want us to talk about today. Now, Creepy Redneck Dinosaur Mansion 3 is not only a title that when you do social media, you dread because it takes up so many characters and you can't put CRDM free because people won't know, but it is a very brilliant allusion to what the entire game is. On the surface, anyway, in that it is the third in a series of games that you think I haven't heard of this series of games. How is this the third one? It's because there was no 1 and 2. There is a 1 coming now, though, which is re-raptored and coming for us from Colin very soon. But at the time, there was only a third. Now, the logical place to start is always Xalvir as the font of where these ideas come from. Creepy Redneck Dinosaur Mansion 3. There's a lot to it, and there's, like, as you get into the game, we probably will spoil little things, so ideally, if you want to play the game and you haven't played it yet, come back to the video maybe after you've played it. As you get into the game, you discover more that it's about the characters in the game becoming or are aware of the fact that they are video game characters, and in a game that maybe the development of it hasn't gone so well. So there's layers to this thing. But where did the initial idea come from, Xalvir?
Initial idea, there's sometimes we've had a few projects that came from I love a mechanic, I love a specific angle on a mechanic, and then there is a bit that I can't let go of, and over time I realized those two things can coexist in the same space. So I adored Puzzle Quest for years and years and years.
Puzzle Quest.
And then felt deeply frustrated that they missed what in my mind was their biggest trick, which is they found an entire universal mechanic system for doing basically anything in a game. You could negotiate with a guard via match 3 and not have to deal with all the pesky words in a dialogue tree. You could lockpick a door, and neither its sequels, although Puzzle Quest 2 did a little bit with this, it had a little mini game, but neither its sequels nor anyone else really picked up that ball and ran with it. They continued to just make games that primarily focused on combat, and it stuck with me. I said, there's something to do here, and I really, really believe in it. There's a few different permutations of that. At one point, I was considering something that was very Fast and the Furious. At another point, Dan was around here when we were considering, is there the possibility for a Creepy Redneck Dinosaur Mansion 3 side project while Creepy Redneck Dinosaur Mansion 3 was struggling to find funding. There was an entire like dark fantasy, pathologic-inspired Plague Exorcist take on this. But the thing that ultimately came together was I had also for years wanted to make a game called Creepy Redneck Dinosaur Mansion 3. And when the light bulb went off and I realized that this game could be brought to life with this mechanic that I also really believed in, suddenly it coalesced and something existed thanks to very talented folks like Dan and Colin and over the years many other people, because this was another Strange Scaffold project like I'm Your Beast that got canceled like 2 or 3 times.
Really? So there was different things. Also to say, while we're talking, if anyone ever wants to jump in and ask a question themselves or jump in with something, you're very welcome to. It's even more fun if we're all chatting. So don't feel like you have to defer to me unless I say we need to move on. But it was cancelled like a bunch of times, like or just not funded. Like how? I mean, yeah. How did that not happen? I guess would be the question.
First time was because, and this is kind of what ended up leaving us with a giant toolbox to ultimately make Creepy Redneck Dinosaur Mansion 3 with. It was, we had, I was evolving the design of the game. I was managing the artists who were generating a bunch of different assets and backgrounds and other things. But it turns out that after roughly 18 months, our first coder had coded themselves into a corner and they hadn't told anyone. So after seeing the project basically not having like insight into what was happening on it, I'm kind of just waiting for the tools coalesces. Like, okay, it's okay if it's another month. It's okay, it's another month, as long as the tools when they come are fully formed. We've gotten a lot better at raising emergency flags, especially around communication earlier. And again, no shade on that original collaborator. They're a very kind, good person. But I ended up bringing in one of the folks who I've worked with at Strange Scaffold to do a code audit to say, I don't know how to even parse this thing. What's happening inside this repo? And they were like, it can potentially be finished, but there is no way to tell exactly how long it would take because it is a Tower of Babel built out of popsicle sticks. So that was one of the tough initial firings I've had to do at the studio. Instead of just like, we just naturally didn't work together, like an explicit, hey, as a checkpoint, first of all, we have to ditch this entire code base. None of it is usable, and have to no longer work with the original person working on it. And then I started casting my eye about for who I could make this thing with, starting from first principles, and to try to find a version of it that would ship. And I think that's how we started talking initially, even, Dan, right? Was that the first thing we started working together on?
Yeah, it would have been.
Before Beast?
Yeah, CRDM3 was definitely my first Strange Scaffold project. Initially, I think we talked about me potentially doing a tiny bit of work on Bass Reeves. Enough that I remember like spending an evening looking at Bass Reeves stuff. But I think that largely came because you didn't know what my availability was. And it turned out I was actually super available. I had nothing going on. I was desperate for work, and we were both kind of like tiptoeing around each other to figure out like what I could do. I was also coming off the back of that same year, a very difficult project. I've sort of alluded to this before. It was a very long project. I came out of that project with a real lack of confidence. And I remember talking with you about Creepy Redneck Dinosaur Mansion 3, and also how like the code base had been kind of unworkable. And when we initially discussed how we were going to approach that project, I put together like a small production plan of like, okay, we're going to have something playable as soon as possible. We're going to get the key thing is we just need something that is flexible and that we can play sooner rather than later. But I was so lacking in confidence that I could probably root around and find it somewhere. But I remember putting together a document where like every 2 weeks I had an off ramp where I was like, if I don't think I can do this project, I'm gone, and someone else can pick this up and run with it. I was about to say thankfully that didn't happen. In a way, that did happen.
Really?
Well, I did do that, but for
I was
good
thinking,
reasons.
I was like, at some point, Colin turns up, so I was like,
Yeah,
I come in a lot later. Weirdly enough.
That was a lot later, and that was for that was essentially for Beast success reasons, rather than my failings reasons. Yeah, it was we really just released Beast, and we were moving on to post-launch content for that.
So that's skipping a step though, because
that's
like,
skipping
then
way far,
it was before Beast came out and you couldn't come back to the project. Studio nearly died, and it was like, we can't work on this thing anymore. Also,
that
every
was
single
bad.
publisher I talked to said that no one will buy a Match 3 game, and sometimes no one cares about Match 3 games, which is a wild statement.
No one cares.
Considering
Yeah,
how many great Match 3 games, including ours,
Yeah.
which is completely different. What did we end up calling our genre? Our genre mashup? Wasn't it Metroidvania?
Metroidvania.
That's so cool.
But even
You're
that,
welcome.
like the Metroidvania thing, came after that reboot. So when the project went on hiatus, I think that was would have been sort of towards the end of 2023, I guess.
The game structure was very close to an Outrun. It was a roguelike-y.
Yeah, that was that was already our second large overhaul, because you were really struggling to find funding. From what I understand, we were getting a lot of people who were playing the build and going like, this is really fun. I can't put this down. We don't know how to sell this. Thanks.
Yeah.
So we were kind of trying to, because at this point in the project as well, like so much of the artwork was already done, and you were trying to keep investment to a minimum. So it was basically just me on it. So there was a lot of conversations between you and me where we were like, how do we take all of this work that's already been done and try to create a format for the game where all of that can still be utilized, but essentially with almost no text. Because I remember the spec, like, we were concerned about localization, we were concerned about the amount of writing that could even go into it and stuff. It's
I will say that
wild
wasn't-
saying
What
that now.
what a concern to have.
That wasn't necessarily about localization. That was because one of the initial goals of the project was I'd love to make something that where you gain skills and you do all the RPG shit. I don't want to write all the in-between things.
Yeah.
I don't want to write all the in-between things. And that's a funny thing to have said, considering where the project ended up.
Considering the game, yeah.
Yeah.
But there was so much of that where it's like taking this match 3 game and going like, okay, how do you make this entirely, or like as much as possible, just mechanically support itself and still house a lot of content that was already done. Like, I cannot stress enough. I think probably, in my estimation, probably 70 to 80% of the artwork was already done by this point, was like ready.
I would go so far as to say like 95%.
Yeah. And
we
that
ended
was
up commissioning
true
a
before I was
total
involved.
of no more than, even after when the project was put on a hiatus, the number of new pieces we ended up commissioning for the final game was, I think, under 30 total pieces of art. It was wild.
Yeah, I remember at one point when we were thinking about structure, because we were throwing so much stuff at the wall to see what would stick, which is the ironic thing about this game, which is like, it's about a game that they tried a bunch of things and then scrapped it. That was very much the journey that we went on, where it's like we were trying so many different things. I remember putting together this enormous Google Doc where I just put every single piece of artwork in the game in this document. I was like, right, how do I create a structure that can house all of this, where all of this is accessible? And yeah, like Zalaver alludes to, like we had this like outrun style structure where it's like, if you match something, you'd have like 2 routes, and so if you match these symbols and you go this way, you match these symbols, you go this way, and then the difficulty would scale with that, and you'd be trying to go to the end of every single route. And it was our effort to try and make a version of this game that could be very, very cheap to produce, because it was increasingly looking like this might have to be budgeted from just the studio's coffers, which at the time, I mean, this was like pre El Paso Elsewhere, very low.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it got put on hiatus for a bit.
So then we skip to Beast doing well, Studio doing a bit better,
Well,
the
this
amazing
was
people over.
This was also right before, like, so Bass Reeves got canceled around this time.
Yeah. I'm Your
Right.
Beast.
A whole video about that.
There was
Right.
there was
There's
a
whole
big
video about
succession.
that. Yeah. And then that was basically do or die for the studio, because El Paso Elsewhere was going on, and this was where I was sort of watching from the rafters in the ceiling. And
What
suddenly,
are you doing there?
No, waiting to work on Life Eater, evidently. So
Eating
Just looking
rats.
around. Okay.
So
Worry about
I jumped onto Life Eater, and then there was the Meow Wolf thing, which we'll talk about at some point briefly, and then I was essentially out of work, and then I told Zalavier, like, hey, I'm working at Don't Nod right now. I don't have time to do another game, so like I'm gonna bow out for now. And then like 3 months later, I've been working in Unreal for God knows how long, and I'm like, hey, can I please make a game? I want to make something else.
Can I please make a game? That sounds very on brand for you.
Which I mean, zero disrespect to Don't Nod Montreal, wonderful team. Lost Records is super great, and I got a ton of experience from working on it. Just not my cup of tea in terms of what I want to make or play. And so while it paid the bills for a while and it was a great experience, I was like, I need something for my creative outlet, or I'm going to explode.
So Beast did super well, which was nice, and we were on the post-launch vector of that, and the wonderful folks over at Frosty Pop, where I was looking into our coffers. I was saying, hey, if we're doing these sustainable lower scale projects, one of the ways we can make a game sustainable is by taking a dead game and bringing it back to life from our own it just like abandoned code repositories.
Zombie
And
development?
zombie development. There has to be a more positive way to say
Yeah,
it.
I was thinking zombie development sounds
Ne-
like we're just shuffling out a corpse.
It's just no, it's necromancy. You have to reanimate.
Necromancy.
Necromancy.
Necromantic development. There you
Yeah.
go.
These are the same picture.
There's a reanimated.
Thanks, Colin.
Yeah, but necromancer. They're all like, "Hi, I'm here. I'm alive."
Yeah, I'm
Zombie.
I was gonna
Lynch
say
now.
there aren't a lot.
I'm new.
Aside from like the big one, there aren't like a lot of positive connotations with resurrection.
No, except for one in particular. There was a net gain, I think, in the story that was told.
Dan, you were talking about the fourth Matrix film, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Obviously.
Yeah,
that's the
Yeah.
good
Trinity.
brilliant
I do
film.
love that movie.
I have not seen it.
It's
I
not
would
bad.
think
Mate, it's not bad.
invisibly
Give it a
you
watch.
can
It's
see some
fine.
comparison between Matrix Resurrections and Creepy Redneck Dinosaur Mansion 3, which is very funny to me.
Mm.
Yeah, actually,
But
yeah,
anyway,
really. Yeah.
so you're looking at the coffers. The coffers doth not overflow, and you speak to Frosty Pop with the idea that, hey, we got Creepy Redneck Dinosaur Mansion 3.
Yeah, we were
It's
already
kinda
working on
here.
other things, and we were actually coming towards the end of games in that deal, and Faisal continues to believe in my creative vision and what the studio does and the amazing people we work with, and I was like, hey, let's go back to this. And when I knock on the first door I go to knock on is, of course, Dan, and Dan is still very much engaged with I'm Your Beast, and we've learned the lesson from clickholding that you can spread yourself thin, and that it will hurt both projects as a result. So finding a way for shared focus to occur by bringing in an additional person and still respecting and recognizing Dan's role, setting up especially the initial version of the code base and creating a door for him to come back when Beast had finished its dev cycle and post-launch cycle. That's what led to us talking again, right, Colin?
Yeah. I think I just reached out to you out of the blue and was like, hey, do you have a project? Because I'm fiending. And it just so happened that you had sort of like, you were like, well, this is crazy, but, Frosty Pop has extended the deal a little bit and we're booting up CRDM3 again. And I think you would be perfect to do the sort of like content design that you did on Life Eater and like get these match 3 puzzles cooking. And so that led to me joining the team. And there was like, I think a month or two of Dan and I sort of figuring out what our roles were, because Dan was, I got made the lead of the project while also being the programmer of the project.
Because that's how it usually went. Was
Yeah.
whoever is the
Right.
programmer is the co-lead alongside me.
Right. And so I was expected to write a lot of code. And so I start digging through this code base and I'm like, okay, there's a lot here. And Dan starts like fixing bugs and like making things work. And I'm like, oh, thank God. Dan knows what this code base is about.
Hooray.
And eventually that came to a head of Dan being like, well, I'm not trying to step on Colin's toes by just like taking over all the programming. And I'm like, I'm trying to not do all of the programming because this is insane. So what
Please
ended up
step.
yeah. So
Yeah.
because again, like it had nothing to do with the code that Dan had written up to that point, like in a vacuum. What it was is there was like 2 years of development
Yeah.
on 3 different versions of this game that all shared this same code base that had just been sort of like grafted from one version of the game to the next. And so like in the final version of the game, there are like every encounter has like an option for like game mode, or like things have an option to only show up in certain game modes, and we don't have different game modes.
Yeah.
The options are still there and the code is still in there to
There's
support
still
game
a bunch
modes.
of code
Yeah,
in there
like,
from the Outrun stuff where it's like there's a bunch of like route selection stuff that we had to basically just go like ignore all that, just
Right.
don't look at it, because a bunch of it ended up being weirdly load bearing and content. Once the project was picked up again, everyone like because there were multiple people producing content for this game, like, and that started up very, very quickly. Pretty much immediately, because we didn't have time for a big refactor before that happened. It was like, okay, if I take these variables out that we're not actually using, none of the stuff that's just been developed is gonna work properly.
Right.
So we just need to kind of pretend it's not there.
Yeah. Which
Yeah.
it made it easier for you to take over as the programmer too, because you already had lived in that code base, and so you were very easily able to go, well, this doesn't matter, let me add this feature over here. And that made the tool set really easy to work with. So at that point, Zalavier had outlined the whole game. I was fleshing out outlines while Nathan was outlining and writing like our side paths.
This is Nathan.
Vocal.
Vocal.
Yeah, it was
and
Nathan,
then-
the writing team on this game, because it was it was one of the things that opened the door for more writing teams to exist at the studio. It was me, Nathan Vocal, Colin McInerney. Was there another person in there who did
Stuff.
Stuff did some writing in game, like
Okay.
to mostly to fix context and stuff when things were implemented and didn't quite make sense. And
So he's part of the writing team.
yeah, and he like his contributions were more like when he would develop a match 3 puzzle, he would like come up with the names and the descriptions and flavor text. Like, yes, absolutely still part of the writing team, but in a like much more focused on like the in-engine implementation as well.
Yeah, it was kind of a spectrum almost, right? Where I'd say you sort of had like Nathan on one end being sort of pure writer, Stav being more general content stuff, and like bits of writing around that, and then Colin would sort of be right in the middle, just doing a bit of everything and also a bit of code. I feel like a lot of projects at Strange Scaffold, because of the sort of scale of them, tend to have like a glue person, where it's just like they sort of connect all the different sort of tendrils, because obviously like Zalavier is very involved but jumps between lots of different projects at once, so you kind of need someone who is just always there and kind of is involved with a little bit of everything, just so they understand how different pieces are supposed to like slot in with each other. And that's what Colin was.
That became especially relevant on this project as the scale of it. Judy McCrory, by the way, did the many backgrounds for the game. Wonderful job on them.
We'll talk about that. Don't you worry. Because they're fucking amazing. But we'll get to that. Yeah.
There are actually a few unused ones that like I'm pulling in for CRDM1, like the dining room, just because like I have these assets and they're great, so I need to find ways to use them before.
That's good. I love the dining room one.
Yeah, and because later we have to
it's maybe my favorite one we didn't use.
Yeah, and like later we have to swap some things out because we're supposed to be like, oh, it's the CRDM1 mansion, so like I need to like in the early parts of the story use as many old assets as I can because I cannot use them later.
Background art, I do want to say, Judy, that I used it as a thumbnail and I think it's the best thumbnail we've had because it's like 99.9% your artwork. It's the one with the little pentagram type thing and the dinosaur skull in the center and the candles around it and the light
in the attic.
in the attic. Yeah, exactly. That's
Thank
so
you.
good. Like when I remember getting like, because I was like, I need my low end part of it, but I was like, I need to make thumbnails, and I was just going through this being like, look at all of this is amazing, like this is ridiculously good. So yeah, the artwork, amazing. What were your inspirations for the look of this, because it is a very specific look to this game?
Thank you. So at the time, Zalavier contacted me early 2022, and he was like, hey, we have a couple backgrounds, you want to come in and join and do more of them for the game? Our inspirations were more click-based games, because it was the early iteration where it was more roguelike. So it was mainly, we just wanted to keep it painterly, because we already had the character artist Marianne, and she already established most of the look. So I wanted to keep all of that textured look so it would match together. So just like click-based games, painterly, and then at the time, in the game itself, where you have like that little mini map that you go through, used to be for every game. So we would base the backgrounds to have enough space to fit like more of those mini maps within each location at the time.
An isometric mini map. It was very inspired by Dicey Dungeons.
Yes. Oh yeah, that was one of the
Brilliant game.
inspirations. I watched a lot of those videos. So yeah, mostly just
Completely
keep more
forgot
of
that
that
was part of
space.
the original direction, because yeah, we did have like a bunch of, we utilized the actual backgrounds as like we had like navigation within each rooms in the background, which is why they had this perspective. And then as we sort of broke away and changed, more of the backgrounds became just like straight backgrounds, and then
And
also I
cinematic
remember,
pieces, yeah.
yeah, and then at one of the iterations we also. I can't remember why we decided on this, but we were like, we need to have doors everywhere, and then we
Yes.
More doors.
But we just didn't have any doors. We didn't have any sort of transitional elements or anything. We just had these sole backgrounds, and then I was trying to. I can't even remember what version of the design this was, but I was trying to advocate for some kind of like Resident Evil style feeling of like, yeah, like it's you got the mansion, and we were trying to. I think make areas feel more distinct and make choosing routes feel more interesting or whatever.
Yeah, at low cost,
I think
trying
you
to
nailed
find.
that too, quite frankly, because that was the vibe that I picked up on, and I wasn't on this project.
As
I
soon
picked
as
up
you-
on it when I was playing it.
Yeah,
like,
as soon as you said
immediately.
no doors, I was thinking, how could there be no doors when doors are such a big thing?
Well, I
in the-
remember it being one of the few like
So-
asks I made because I was like, I knew we were trying to keep the cost of the project really, really low. But I was like, I think we're going to get really good mileage out of this. If we can do this, it's going to go a really long way. And then you came back with like a ton of really, really good ones that sort of extended the feeling of the mansion a lot.
Thank you.
What? So narratively, I will first say that it's one of my favorite games I've been a part of, but one of my favorite Strange Scaffold games for a start. Like it's really good. Like like it's really well written, really fun to play, and I also have loved, just because it's part of my job, but I've loved watching other people play it, knowing where the story's going to go and what it's going to do. And at what point did you decide, like, oh, we're going to have like the developers themselves, spoilers, I said it at the start, but like my favorite moment to watch people is Zalavir when you first pop up right at the end. Like, hi, I'm Zalavir. And then more and more people pop up, and yeah, love that. It's amazing. So, like, at what point were you like, this is going to be a big part? Like, we have something actually to say about the games industry. Like, when did that come in?
There's an actual moment. I was at GDC 2024 at an Outer Wilds concert. I have never beaten Outer Wilds, but
Was that the one we were at together?
I think we were both there, yeah.
We were just like quietly writing game concepts next to each other, not talking, listening to music.
That's real.
The
That
best way
doesn't
Sounds like the
surprise
best
me at
time.
all.
to
Mhm.
concert go. But I'm sitting there up in the rafters. Candace is also there, twisted into a game dev pretzel. Just
That's just
Little-
a gay pretzel. I don't know
What
what
we
to
call
tell you.
Yeah.
little goblin writing his own stuff. And as I'm looking at this and I'm thinking about the projects in development and also like functionally dead at that time at Strange Scaffold, I thought I had an idea for this angle of Creepy Redneck Dinosaur Mansion 3. It's written in like my notebook and in a few different places, but I kind of freehand improvisational just wrote this conversation of basically a character from Creepy Redneck Dinosaur Mansion 3. I think it was Dog Hunkin', which is, again, very ironic for where Dog Hunkin' ended up being in the final story. But I think Dog Hunkin' kind of talking to the main character, and the main character breaking down and sort of begging for their game, begging for their life in the same way that I had begged for this project to exist. Not every game hits this for me, which is healthy and good. But I tend, when I really believe in a core concept for something, when I think that it does something clever and necessary. This is how I also felt about Teenage Demon Slayer Society, which we intend to bring back in some form at some point in the future. We're very happy about how that ended up being a jumping off point for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Tactical Takedown, which I'll talk about later. When I really believe in it, and I am told by my peers and exemplars in the industry that this thing doesn't deserve to exist, that hits personally. It's not just, oh, they didn't believe in this project. I was pitching a roguelike deck builder and they didn't like it. It's this is this beautiful like evolution of something that deserves to exist, and being told that doesn't actually deserve to exist. And so being inspired by the beautiful music of Andrew Prelo, I believe is the name of the composer, and going, you know what, if I get to come back to this game, it's Andrew Prelo, I will make a version of this where the characters advocate for themselves, where it's not meta haha, because meta haha doesn't feel good in an industry where all of your peers are suffering and being crushed under the boot of not just late stage capitalism, but particularly callous treatment of developers and to a degree their audiences. Let's go meta aha. And that ended up guiding a lot of the final tone, a lot of outlining with Colin and Nathan on what this thing would end up being and how to communicate that story, realizing as we made it that we would need a glue person who would be stretched increasingly thin. Colin, you took up so much of the final brunt of content on this thing, and I really, really appreciate it, because it was most of the game designs have been built in some way, and we're getting away from it over time, thank God, to have me be in the pain box. Space Warlord was that way, and Airport for Aliens, it was just a given. Hey, I'm the stretchy man.
The more games that I produced at this studio, and after I heard Zalavir for the first time say to me, he's like, yeah, I have to go in the pain box. I went, the what?
Do I use this term often?
You use it a lot.
I've heard it before.
This does not surprise me.
Yeah,
You
you use it a lot
say
less.
it all the time. You don't say it anymore. I think that I very gently and lovingly was like, stop doing that.
I was like, perhaps we do not put anyone, including you,
Radical.
into the pain box.
No one's in the pain box.
The thing we found on CRDM3, good observation. I'm gonna keep that in mind. I didn't realize I used that term or used that term so
The
often.
fact that
Talk about
I've
not
heard
as much
it, I think should say
anymore.
something.
But the way how the project evolved, where we were like, we put all the pieces together and we were like, to make any version of this that says something, especially, the need for it will require everyone to go hard on this thing, became really, really relevant. And I realized really quickly, which forced me to learn some additional delegation skills I don't think I really had before, to say, hey, this isn't going to be a thing where we all outline together and I take on the majority of writing. We actually all need to break up the writing, because there's so much writing we need to do. We need to break up the content. I can't fit in, pain boxing this project, and so it got spread on a lot of people. And at the end of the project, by the end of the project, a lot of people pulled together a lot of their individual interests and specialties on the thing to make it work. As Dan said, the spectrum from pure writing to Stav, who mainly focused on content, and Colin pulled together so much connective tissue for what the game is, and I, near the end of development, did 3 giant writing passes on editing it, and alongside him molding the final version.
Yeah, man. It's been a good process to watch you not throw yourself into said pain box for, at least I would say when I joined, you were still very much, you were very much a man that would throw himself into the pain box, and now
I thought that's what you needed to
will...
do to be a leader. I didn't realize that you can demonstrate responsibility without directly being tortured in full view of everyone present.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you've managed to surround yourself with people also that recognize that that's what you were doing all the time, and were saying to you man, I could do that, or you don't have to do that, or we could delegate this to X, Y, or Z, or me, or someone else, or so yeah, it's
We can do this together.
yeah, we're all here, we can all do it, and we can all help. So I am very glad that CRDM3 was the start of that process, and yeah, I would say
I wouldn't say it was a
healthy
start,
process.
but it definitely pushed that forward a lot.
Yes,
And Colin,
yeah.
how did it feel? Because I see you on tenterhooks. How did it feel
To be in the
when we
paint box.
realized just how much we'd have to build for this thing to make it actually exist.
I don't think I ever grappled with it. I think I was just in. Like I will say in no uncertain terms, I worked on CRDM to the detriment of Don't Not. I gave them less hours than I should have every single week because I was so invested in the project that I was like, I would rather be working on this for 40 hours a week than this other thing that pays me more and that I've been responsible for. And like, I dropped the ball pretty hard for them. And that is the lesson I took away is, wow, being in the pain box is not a good time to overload yourself with a bunch of other work. But I don't think I realized this project would be that large. I think like there was a lot of writing to do when we were splitting it up, but it seemed like a surmountable amount. And what ended up happening, I think, was extra side paths got written because there was more stuff to do and explore. And then when things changed without going through me, which didn't happen often, but it did happen, I was immediately like, okay, I need better visibility so that this doesn't happen. So my communication ramped up. I got more proactive. I demanded that we have one source of truth because it kept ping-ponging between the game and the spreadsheet and then the Miro board. And so there was like this moment where, and I'm going to speak very plainly here, where you were like, I think I was really frustrated with something happening. I think a thing got moved around. And I was like, why did this get moved and no one told me about this? And you were like, it's in the Miro board. And that was like the third time I had heard it from you today. And I was like sitting at my computer being like, I know it's in the fucking Miro board, Xolivier. And I didn't say that because I have more self-control than that.
Because you screamed it very loudly in your head instead.
Right, exactly.
Remote work, you can just shout it. And,
yeah, you
and
actually
then type a nice answer.
It's this wonderful human
You just
ability
mute it and
you
go.
gain. Yeah. It's this wonderful thing where at some point you realize that not every thought that comes to your brain needs to be said out loud in the way that it first
I'll
comes
learn
into
that
your
one
brain.
day.
You know, it's a long ongoing process for me, and I still haven't figured it out all the way. But it led to me having such a level of ownership over the game that I even got in hot water at one point because I added something to the game without telling Xolivier, and that was like,
Yes.
and that was like, no, we don't do that. And I did tell you before
was
we
it in the
launched
Miro
and
board?
we removed it. It was not in the Miro board.
May I say,
Well,
you
there you
told
go.
me, and
The thing is,
yeah, like I was like, oh, thanks. Like, when you toss that my way.
I told a few people, and then people were like, Xolivier doesn't like that. And I was like, okay, well, then I'm going to actually check with Xolivier before.
That was my main point. I was like, you should really talk to Xolivier.
I did.
And also, I might talk to Xolivier, but you should really talk to Xolivier.
Because once that got raised, I was like, okay, well, there's no way this is like not going through him.
Yeah.
Because it went in my head, it was like, oh, this is a funny little thing. And if it wasn't a funny little thing, then it was not going through that way. So, but it was all of this to say, this project became all consuming. It was the thing I cared most about shipping and getting out the door. And I took on such a level of like ownership over it that like, I'm pretty sure I worked like 50 or 60 hours a week sometimes because I was testing the game more than I think anyone else was. I was not only like
At a certain
You have
point.
a QA background too, so you
I
were
do.
like
I do.
testing,
So I was
testing.
right. I was full on testing the game. I think in the week leading up to ship, I think we had like 7 or 8 builds going out, and I would start on one build, get about halfway through, and then the next night after working on this game for like 8 to 10 hours would then be like on my Steam Deck playing the latest build, finding bugs and doing like run throughs and being like, Manda, I need these turned into Trello card. Or no, not Manda.
No, that's a reasonable thing to ask for.
Yeah.
That I wasn't on that project.
It was Rachel.
I would probably ask
That
Manda
was-
as well, to be fair.
I was asking.
That's
I was
okay.
I was asking Rachel Heleva, our producer on the project. I was asking Rachel to just like go through this list and then put things in Trello. And then because Rachel is a reasonable person who was working normal person hours, I would be done with the things I asked her to put in before they got put into Notion. Sorry for task tracking. And then things would get added to Notion. And I had to go through Notion and be like, okay, this is closed, this is closed, this is closed. I already did that. And I was just doing too much. I did way too much.
This is my twofold question, which is, did that feel healthy? And that's not like a one where you should definitely say no, but like, did that feel healthy? And did you bill for all those hours? Because I know we're all part-time. So if you're working all of those hours, I don't know if there's necessarily the budget for all of those hours.
There is no way that I should have worked all those hours, nor that I billed Zalavir for all of them. And I'm not. I'm saying that not to seek anything from it. It was entirely my own decision where I went too overboard, and it essentially became my hyperfixation to make sure this game launched.
I've never known you to hyperfixate on anything.
No, why would I do that?
We're not like that as a
But I think as
company.
well, like, because I mean, so Colin, we got up recently, like a week or two ago,
Yeah,
and we were talking about like sort of different parallels in our careers and approaches. And I feel like for CRDM 3, that for you was what like I'm Your Beast was for me, where I was like, I really, because like while I started on CRDM 3 earlier, Beast was going to be, aside from like click holding, which I did sort of small amounts of work on, Beast felt like the one was like, this is going to be like my sort of first game at the studio I feel like I have sort of some degree of ownership over. And it's so easy for your ego to get kind of wrapped up in that. And I remember working on CRDM 3 and being like, I'm really sticking to my hours. This is pretty healthy. And then like a few weeks before launch, actually setting aside time to play through the game because I hadn't really done that, and being like, this is really good. And then seeing Colin over there like
in the box,
like not having that experience, and being like, oh, he's the glue. Yeah, it's like that's because he's the glue on this one, and I'm not the.
Now I will say. Oh, go ahead, please.
I was gonna say that this is something that, especially for the next wave of projects we announced, Space Warlord Baby Training Simulator, and Truckcoon is supporting me from Another World. This is something that seeing this, I Am Your Beast, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Tactical Takedown happen in quick succession led to a big change over at the studio. From the studio level, because the main thing I designed, I think, as a studio head is like the ecosystem that these games come through. And what I realize is that Strange Scaffold projects, partially because they offer this, especially if you're feeling disempowerment, or if you're feeling like this this internal lack of validation from any source, that it offers a place that it becomes, there's almost a gravitational pull towards becoming a glue person. People will self-impose glue, and it can happen, and it can alter the entire course of a project, especially when those collaborators are key people. And
I can see
realizing,
at least 4 people in this call who do that regularly, and I hit them with my little broom every time.
yeah, so realizing how often, like, Strange Scaffold projects, because even as a studio head, I'm still used to seeing myself as getting a healthier and healthier version of abstraction from paint boxes. What I realized on these last 3 projects in quick succession was, oh, that's because more people are more directly stepping into that also themselves for a bunch of different reasons. And so the next few projects I've been very particularly designed to, alongside the producers having larger and larger hitting sticks, go like, no, this can't be your personality. This is, I want people to feel personal investment while also recognizing it as a gig. This is a job. This is not you as a person. And I think it will continue to still be one of the biggest things we fight, because even for myself, as I mentioned with the personal connection to CRDM 3, some of the wild hours and things I said no to, and some of the ownership on things that in hindsight probably wouldn't have mattered too much for the player experience or reception, I still identify so much with the work that it is hard to make that call and to self-impose any discipline or limits on. If the thing is not good, I'm not good. And I think Strange Scaffold projects really have invited that, and invited glue people, and invited a lot of unhealthy stuff in that regard. And that's something we're really trying to work against.
It's good. I mean, it's because this is the next question, right? Like, and I don't know how much we want to get into this, but like, with all that extra stuff you did, because I know I will do a lot of stuff, like, and it's not in developing a game, but there's obviously a lot of things that always need doing, and your own ambition will tend to outstrip what you can actually achieve within human hours. But how much of that felt that it needed to be done? Because this is my question with how you would then... How do you avoid that? Because realistically, all those things that got done led to the project that was shipped. And was that a fault of planning that like led to sort of, we didn't anticipate that this would require this much work, therefore with our learning we can try and anticipate it? Or is it unanticipatable? Because it is a thing that seems to happen everywhere I've worked with game studios or any creative output. Like, I worked at Meow Wolf once, and like building those buildings, even that spirals into a world of people working themselves into like burnout. And it's, how is that avoidable, I suppose? Amanda, please. I would, as a producer.
Can I say a brief point
anyway,
before you hop into it, Amanda?
Please do.
And then let me get after Amanda, because I've got thoughts here too.
The brief thing I'll say is, I think this really, really is prominent in games culture as a whole, because every game can be your last. You don't know if you get another job, and I think that plus all the other things that have to do with being a human being or projects dealing with planning and all sorts of other things, knowing that every project can be your last, this might be the last thing you get to do, this might be the last creative outlet you have, especially if you're empowered in a creative outlet, it really, really invites it. And there's a lot of companies that will take advantage of that very intentionally.
It's also I feel the fear of how easily one could be replaced, if that makes sense. I don't know if that's a factor for many people, but like that, I feel that has always been a thing as well. But Manda, you were going to raise some points.
It's all good. So I think if we're talking about this from both a learnings perspective and a future perspective, we have so many incredibly talented developers that work here. So many amazing collaborators that are discipline experts, or they're like me and they're multi-classers and they do a little bit of everything, and that's really beautiful. And the tendency is, well, I want to pour myself into this game. And perhaps some of it comes from the scarcity mindset of, what if I never have another job again? Or what if this is the only thing that I'm able to do and then that's it? But I think it runs even deeper than that. And it gets to, we have so many, like I said, we have so many talented developers, but we have folks that get really excited, like so psyched, so interested. And they feel this pull, right? They feel the call. And that tends to sometimes override, what the production team will want to put in place, which is to put guardrails in place. Like, that's the whole point of production in general, is to make sure that we've got a nice little outline for our sandbox. And kind of how I run things, we were just talking about TruckCoon, the way that we set up TruckCoon is that we have boundaries, and then there's enough room for everyone to play. Because that's the point, right? The point of making sure that we do pre-production, that we make sure that we're experimenting, that we are leaving room to answer questions in advance of production and all that good stuff. And I think in this very specific way, this will help us in the future to build better habits. And I'm not going to lie to you, I have utilized my very big production stick on a number of occasions with love. Just to be clear, it is always with love. I'm never angry. It's just I get worried. It's that big mom energy I bring to like everything. So,
Dude.
yeah, I literally don't know any other way to be. So I think
it's
that's
dogs
part of it.
chasing cars. You're trying to stop the
Yeah.
dog from getting run over, but the dog's not chasing the
Exactly.
car. Like,
I was chasing the
man,
dog.
I really wish there wasn't all this pressure to chase this car. Like, they're just
Yeah.
happy, right? Like, it's
Yeah, they're just everybody just gets really, really excited. So it's not about dampening the excitement, it's about funneling it and making sure that there are limits in place so that devs can have fun and build together and collaborate without hurting themselves. And I hate saying no, but I also love saying no.
Completely agree. Colin, you were also gonna.
Yeah, I think that the thing about ownership and just about making games in general, and really with any creative field, is making anything at scale is constantly roadblocked by just deeply human problems, because at the end of the day, humans have to make these things. So why did I go out of my way to try and put an extra little side path in CRDM3? Well, because for the first time in a decade of making games, after leaving my ego shattered on the floor of my grad school, I suddenly was like, holy shit, I know what I'm doing. I can make this game. I can ship it. I'm in a position to do that finally, where I not only have all of the tools at my disposal to get this thing out of the door, but the ability, the trust in the team, all of this to just move this forward. There is not a better feeling for me personally as someone that loves making games and loves talking to people. And if I weren't doing it for Strange Scaffold, for an extremely reasonable amount of money, by the way, then I would be doing it for myself, and I am doing it for myself for no money, because I need to fucking make video games. Because if this doesn't work out, I don't know what else I'm going to do.
That's real.
Fucking real.
It's gonna be
That's
something.
so real.
It's gonna be something really fucking boring to me that I'm going to sludge through and despise every minute that I'm doing it, while half-assing it, trying to get back into making games. Because there just isn't an option for me that involves not doing this. And so to have that crystallizing moment of like, oh fuck, I'm a game developer. The imposter syndrome is gone. I feel my abilities matching my expectations for myself, and then some. Like that's what I've been chasing this whole time. And the brief glimpses I've had of it in the past don't compare to, holy shit, I'm leading a project, have the trust from someone in a position of running a studio to get this thing over the like edge. Like, I'm not gonna just not do the things that I feel, from my standards, need to get done because I'm pouring so much of myself into this. Now, I think, Chris, at one point you asked, is that healthy? Like, I'm not saying go do it for someone else, right? But like, for me, it's healthy for me because that's how I am happy. If I can get into the mode where I can lock in and just make games forever, like, that's so rare as someone with ADHD, where I'm like not forcing myself to do something day in, day out. And so, like, yeah, it probably wasn't healthy. No, I don't recommend it, but it's gonna be how I make games for the rest of my life. So I need to find ways to distribute that and work healthy and in an environment that is respectful of the people around me. Because the, double-edged sword to this is that if you become the glue and then everyone else kind of gets stuck in your glue because you're doing too much, and you start like going beyond what's expected and what's understood to be your role, that's where you run into issues, because all of a sudden you are living in a different reality than the rest of the fucking team.
It has invisibly, we've still managed to stay on budget somehow, thank God. But like, it's invisibly ballooned, not just individually paying people, and I've had to, it's like, Colin, I've had to chase you to get you to pay me, to get you to let me pay you.
Yeah, I think at one point I invoiced you like 30 hours or something. You were like, fuck off. There's no way you've only worked 30 hours this last month.
Yeah.
I had Krista do that to me as well, where she's like, how have you done that many hours? I'm just like, well, did I count them? No.
This is a weird thing about
because I got in an 8-hour flow state and I was cooking, and by the time I felt so good that I didn't want to think about how much work I did. I just wanted to go play video.
The idea of charging someone else for it feels really rude.
Yeah.
Like,
and that makes me sad and
upset.
upset. You're doing a
Well, no.
job.
I know, but it's like, you know how good I felt after that day?
Besties,
Yeah.
I love you so much. knock it the fuck off.
The
Please,
thing
I
is
will
as well,
chase
like,
you.
Amanda, I'm
I
only
will
doing.
find you.
I've got my truck kun hours. I know what I'm up for now.
Very briefly. I think, and this is another thing that I think it gets under discussed in games, is I love you use the term, Colin, stuck in your glue, because what's been an invisible ballooner outside of people getting really hyped and really invested and forcing me to chase them so I could pay them because the numbers don't add up. One of the interesting things is that it's really under discussed in games how much that increases the workload of other people. Like, the additional side path has new art needs, new content needs, has new, and I'm just using side path because we're talking about CRDM 3, but like something I've had to reckon with over the years at Strange Scaffold is like, oh, if I go sicko mode, because games is so multidisciplinary, that forces other people to support my work to also go sicko mode. And I think I feel very seen in this call, because what I at least see and hear is a lot of people saying sicko mode means different things for me, and when I can go sicko mode, it feels like the best thing in the world. How do I make sure that doesn't hurt other people? I think that being a constant conversation and a constant thing that is being accompanied alongside sicko mode at all is, I think, a good movement for the studio and for me as a person, and just like, again, I think collectively for the industry, if we can get that conversation happening more often, it will help. Because when you see the sicko mode story told in the GDC talk about the game that sold 10 million units, it just encourages everyone else to say, well, yeah, that's how you make a great game.
Yeah,
This
it
was
causes
gonna be-
all the creative directors to go, "Yo, I just played Tears of the Kingdom. What if we did that?
I was gonna
You
say
think we could
this.
just climb stuff?"
I think it's
Sorry.
important to note that the stories that have been told of doing loads of work and burning out is the story. As Zelivir just said, you hear that story over and over again, and you only hear them in relation to success every
Mhm.
time. You don't ever hear from the people that worked themselves to death and then the game didn't come out, or they got laid off, or whatever. So yeah, it's those are the
you don't
magical
hear about
people
those
that you
people
hear from.
doing.
It is also worth noting that I think Dan and I both went a little bit sicko mode toward the end of the project, and we then burned out for like 3 weeks straight.
I think it was okay. I didn't.
Okay, but you also
You were gone for a
burnt
bit,
out
though,
for a
mate.
couple weeks. Yeah, we both like
no. That I still don't really understand what happened there.
the
Like,
week after the project shipped, we were all just like, I'm not touching. Like, I tried to open Unity once, and I was just like, fuck it. And they were like, hey, we have bugs from people, and I was like, I don't know.
I
where
do remember
anything is.
that. So for me, because the end of the project was, I remember there was like a really big come down
Yeah,
at the end of the project, and it took me off guard. But I remember, like, I was tracking my hours and stuff. Like, my hours didn't go over. I don't think at all. I think I pretty much kept them in the realm of like 30 hours a week towards the end. I don't think I ever went over 40. And then a lot of that come down, I think, was actually residuals. I think it was a mix of the social aspect of working on CRDM 3, because there were so many people creatively involved, and I hadn't really had that on a different project even at the studio before. Whereas, like, we were all in pretty constant communication and like discussing the game, and then the game was out and it just stopped, and that's a really jarring like switch, and I think a lot of us felt that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
also
'cause we
like some
were-
of it would have been residual from Beast, I think, because I went straight from Beast into post-launch for Beast, not in a way that was exhausting. Post-launch for Beast was actually like very easy for the most part, but coming out of that straight into CRDM 3, and then I think some of that come down was actually from Beast. But it was interesting that like so much of the team kind of felt that, and it is a strange kind of phenomenon to be that kind of closely entwined with other creative people,
I think it's
and then just suddenly it stops.
I think part of it was that like because like the majority of the art was already done, right? So like we got new things from Judy, but and we had to implement them. But at the end of the day, like toward the end of the project, toward shipping this version of CRDM 3, there were like 6 of us, I think, that were just constantly communicating, constantly working, getting this game out the door. And
it was filling a bunch of symbols that had no meaning with meaning, which was one of the most dangerous parts also for me, because it was like, there's all these tools. How, can we make a game without the manta ray? That would be crazy. What if we did a whole story about the manta ray? And realizing at a certain point, like, oh, this way lies madness was that was my personal moment, like in the movie where you come to the edge of the cliff and then you go like, whoa. It was realizing that there was
down there.
there was something really intoxicating about having that tool set and that toolbox and just every day getting to make it important.
Yeah, it was like Clown Alley was like, at some point I had to like completely redesign Clown Alley because players
it was cursed. It was the most buggy part of the project. It would constantly break for unknown reasons.
Mm-hmm.
We rebuilt Clown Alley 3 or 4 times.
I don't know how. Seriously?
Because for unknown reasons, it completely broke, and we had to reset it.
Not for unknown reasons.
I know why these were. Yeah, I know why it broke.
Well, for me, it's a spiritual thing. This is I watched I Am Your Beast, where you left for Clown College, and then we had to delay it.
Mate, that was the.
And this is not the reason for that delay. You know,
every time there's a clown, something happens.
Oh,
every time,
right here.
Okay,
I didn't want to bring it up, but
I have a serious answer to this, and the reason I know why this happened was a result of the thing I added that we then cut when the game shipped. The thing I had added was off of the end of the robot section. And so there was like an extra path you could go there. And when the game shipped, when people got there was a path that was visible on the map, but you couldn't actually go to. And so I asked Dan about this because it was misleading players to think, hey, there's content back there when I had deleted that content. So I asked Dan and he was like, oh yeah, so what happened is the encounters get stored in a list between encounters, and that list is auto-populated, and so there's not something there to delete that list when information gets like removed unless you like fully replace it. And so since I had just deleted it, it basically couldn't do that. And so what had happened with Clown Alley was when Nathan originally wrote it, he wasn't aware of the limitation we had in the game where you could only have 3 exits from anything and then they couldn't converge back on themselves. So what happened was we had this rat's nest of encounters that led into each other multiple times, which broke the map. And then every time we fixed it, data was left behind that was leading to old things that either didn't exist or still existed, but were connected to something else, which broke the map every single time. And so not knowing that at the time, and from players playing Clown Alley just going, I don't really get what's happening because it was super text dense and we were mostly using the like encounter style. Hell yeah, Candace. Essentially, I ended up just redoing Clown Alley in our normal dialogue system because it ended up being easier to just like fully rebuild it than hunt down all of this data that I didn't know about at the time. So thankfully, my little Stanank also led me to a deeper understanding of the game's engine, which was a weird unintended side effect, and that's kind of how game dev happened.
It's a thing called technical debt.
Yeah,
it's why it's why you don't refactor the design of your game like 3 or 4 times significantly. Yeah.
And if there's one last big story I'd like to tell about CRDM3, it's that we did refactor the design in 48 hours in December of last year. Do y'all remember
I
that?
haven't even asked. I just realized when I was looking at my notes, I have not at any point gone, the game, like, there was a pivot. Like what?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, there was an uncancelled pivot.
Yeah.
We hadn't canceled the game.
There was, the point where it became a Metroidvania, which, as I've alluded to already, like I had to refactor the design of this game a lot, like the structure of it. And this was one where we'd kicked the project back up. Everyone was making content for it already. We'd done a playtest.
Friends and family playtest, very first one.
Yeah, and it became pretty apparent from that the structure wasn't working again.
Because people were like, I don't get it, but like the match 3's fun.
Match 3's fun. We like the story. We like the art. We have no idea what this thing is, though. Like, what is
Yeah,
this
and
game?
The problem.
What actually were we doing at the moment? Because it's weird to describe. Because we still kind of had the same
There's
plot,
sort of chapters
right?
with branches, but there was sort of like narrative branches, is how I remember it. It wasn't like we didn't present it. It was sort of
Yeah, we had
It
no.
was
We were
pretty
trying
linear.
to avoid having an on-screen map, among other things.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So it was entirely brain space, and there was no physical representation, and also there was no. We didn't have the more explicit Metroidvania gating. So
Yeah. The
a
map
lo-
was almost like tiered at that point, right? Where you just kind of went from one to the other, and so it was still doing like you go left or right almost.
Yeah, it was pretty restrictive. Also, just for people keeping track. So this was a project that was supposed to have very little dialogue and writing in it, and also no map.
As soon as you said no map, I was like, I remember all this happening.
well,
But
and that was
and the
bef-
game
and that
we ended
was-
up with.
because
what I
I
was gonna
remember.
say is,
oh, go ahead.
it started with a map. Then it was
did.
no dialogue, no map.
This
Yeah,
game really
no,
didn't want to get
yeah.
made, did it?
I
No.
just remember Krista telling
He was
me
like,
it was like because we were handling the friends and family playtest from like a community marketing team side and all this stuff coming back, and then I feel like I went to bed, woke up, and Krista had sent me like these long messages. Krista also works on them. You'll know them from the stuff on
Yeah.
our internet, but
Goated.
Krista sent me this long message about, well, they've just decided to kind of change the game completely. So I think it works and I think it's going to be good, but just, letting you know that like they've just pivoted.
Yeah.
And I was like,
But it was
sorry, what?
it was such a quick pivot, but it was like the difference with this one and why it was stressful for me, who had done it a few times before, was we had locked in a release for like 6 months from that point.
Mm.
And it
I
was
know.
immovable. Like and there was so much momentum already. That was like, okay, so we needed a structure that would essentially mean that all the stuff that had already been written, or at least as much of it as possible, could still make sense and be housed within a new structure. And we had to make sure it was clear to the players that we would trust that we need to be able to trust that it would be compelling once it was implemented without being able to test it first, really, because we wouldn't have another shot at anything else. Yeah, and I remember I think we had like there was like we all got into like a voice call, and we were all a bit panicked and sort of throwing ideas out there. And I then got panicked about the idea that like we were gonna pick the wrong idea and run with it or something, or like everyone just wanted a solution so fast.
Yeah, the way that went down is it was supposed to be a chill Monday co-working meeting, and I was like, "Hey, here's the playtesting data. Also, I think what this suggests is we need to change the structure of the game, and we have basically 24 hours to do it. But we're gonna create this meeting is now a fallback plan emergency meeting, and after this, everyone can leave text messages. I think, Dan, you were the one who correctly advocated for let's, outside of this meeting, not just have the fallback, but like have a gathering period for ideas. And tomorrow we will decide on the idea of the structure of the game because it needs to come out in 6 months.
And I did that in part so that I could go in sicko mode. And after already having done like a longish day, not a longish day, like a normal day, I was like, look, I think I know what it is. I think I know how we do this.
And I think at
Our
this point,
fallback
you
plan
and I
was a
hadn't-
linear game, by the by.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think at this point we also hadn't solidified our roles necessarily, or we had like if we had just
We had like just
barely
done it.
it.
Yeah.
So it was like we were
Dan
still
is
in this case
programming
of,
lead,
like,
Colin is content co-lead.
yeah. So
Yeah.
it was very much this like, okay, we're figuring out our roles, but like we're both still like we both need to have like a level of confidence here to carry this thing through
Yeah.
to do a pivot in 24 hours.
Yeah, it was a mix of needing to assert ourselves, but also trying to be really, really polite and not
Yeah.
like forceful or anything. But yeah, I went away and I think I put together like it was like just a Google Doc with like 2 sheets. I was like, okay, here is a structure that I think makes sense. If we do it like a filling in the map game, we know that's good for the brain. Like it just feels nice to see things fill in. It can house a bunch of content, and importantly, it means that if, while implementing this new structure or coming up with content and trying things that potentially might not work, because it seems like we're trying things and they're not working, it means that by having the structure where we have things that can branch off and don't have to go anywhere, or things that can branch off, and if they aren't working for the player, we can just remove them. That gives us a lot of padding to protect ourselves with. And I thought I'd have to advocate for it a lot stronger than I did. I think we basically just got in the call. I was like, here is the doc. And then we kind of just went with it.
Yeah, and I think the fucked up thing for both of us is that it worked.
Now we're making Now Colin and Pedalboard Games is making Creepy Redneck Dinosaur Mansion 1.
Yeah. But the crazy thing about it working is that like we had basically got all of this playtest feedback that was like not negative, but it was like, if we don't know, if people are playing a thing and they don't know what it is, regardless of what they're having fun, they're not going to be able to tell other people about it. They're going to be like, oh yeah, it's this game, but I'm like, I don't really know what I'm doing, but there's puzzles and like, it makes for an interesting novel experience in the time. But then we immediately knew that it's like, okay, there is a structural foundational issue to this game that we need to solve. And we solved it in 24 hours and shipped something based off of that. The fact that we not only made that pivot and then like carried it forward and we could see the vision, I think gave Dan and I a lot of confidence in what we were doing. And I think a few weeks later, we had a meeting with Zalavier and Rachel where it was just like, so we're behind schedule. Like if these things don't start getting done now, then we're not going to hit our deadline and this game isn't going to ship. And Dan and I just both went, okay. And everyone just like hit the ground running from that point on. And the rest of that is a blur, but I think that's where the sicko mode really kicked in and everyone was just kind of making the game that we fully understood at that point.
That was another checkpoint of, I had seen bits and pieces of it on other projects. This is why it's nice to see it a lot of projects at high level, and this is why developers should be able to work on more things instead of working on one game for 8 years.
That doesn't come out.
There was a point at which I was like, oh, I don't necessarily want to, I'll tell people like the overall budget or like the conditions of the game, but like, I don't want to show them the production timeline because that will cause scaries. And it led to a real transparency of the studio that's preceded a lot of other really positive movements of saying, no, we're going to show people, here's the calendar. It isn't just you missed a deadline. It is, here's all the things that will come from it. It is useful for people to see the larger context.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing the larger context and being exposed to it consistently, as opposed to my initial fears that would give people so much information that they got scared, to give people, among other things, the context to know when to go sicko mode, or that the sicko mode was not necessary in some nice cases, which is, both of those are lovely.
Yeah.
A really nice thing too about like sharing production timelines is something I've started doing on projects, is sharing exactly how many hours I've budgeted for a specific person with that person, which is actually turned into a really useful tool that I've seen a lot of the different devs use to budget their own time. And it's like, oh, when people know how much time they have, they know where they can use it, which has been a really, it's kind of a duh moment, but it's really, really useful. Of like, I got a message shortly before co-op Kaiju Horror Cooking came out, of like, hey, I have 30 minutes until I hit my hour cap of X. Should I do anything else? And I was like, no, you're done. And we made sure that we had a plan for the last couple things that he needed to do were passed on to people who could do them. But it was just like, great. We know where the limit is, and then we stopped.
And it's like some of it's also just like how you interpret that time as well, right? It's like the difference between telling someone they have 5 minutes and telling someone they have 300 seconds. Like 300 seconds sounds a lot more scary because you're like, well, I understand that. Was 5 minutes feels more like stretchier. I think with CRDM 3 having these kind of not like strictly milestones, but having like friends and family tests, for example, like a number of those, they're also really helpful in Beast.
We noticed that we had a team of, oh, sorry, I was just going to say, we had a team of neurodivergent procrastinators.
Yeah.
Like, we went from having, we're going to have like 1 or 2 friends and family playtests to saying, we're going to have a friends and family playtest like every month, because it won't give our neurodivergent procrastinators, including myself, any space to not think about this being presented to an audience soon.
because it was
Mm.
like, oh, well, for the next friends and family playtest, if the same playtesters come back and it's just chapter 1 and 2 again, that's also just not useful for us. So it was like, all right, well, then we better fucking get chapters 3 and 4 in there, or otherwise, but we're gonna have a bunch of really bored playtesters and not get anything useful. And
Yeah.
that was a big impetus.
There's like a sweet spot, right? Where it's like you're aware of the scarcity of time,
Mhm.
but you, at least when you're determining what those sort of checkpoints are going to be, it means you usually come into that with enough flexibility to go like, okay, I'll prioritize this thing. We need to know that this thing's working like a few weeks out, and then it just gives you it gives you sort of goalposts to position yourself in.
Yeah.
Which is really
Yeah.
helpful.
That's huge.
And I want to close the loop on this because I think we've milked CRDM3
Don't worry,
probably for a long
I
time.
actually
this
have
call.
more to say, but go
Okay,
ahead.
great. I want to bring it back to just like all of these are deeply human problems where we're all just a bunch of bozos who have a specific set of skills for making video games, and every single studio faces these problems and has to solve those problems, right? And we have people will come in with their own contexts and their own solutions to problems. And it is, to some extent, a problem that can be, solved by bringing the right people in. But then those people still need to be able to integrate into the team and provide the context for, well, this is why I do these things this way, and this is why it can be helpful. And there needs to be a certain level of trust. And a lot of that trust for me was like trust that we established while building CRDM3. And now as I move on to other Strange Scaffold projects, it is
You can
this
say
thing
it.
of
You're,
like,
you're working on Truck Kun and supporting me from another world.
right. I'm working. So now as I move on to Truck Kun, right? It's like, it's a different situation. I'm a lead level designer, but I'm not the project lead like I was with CRDM. My hours are a little bit more limited in scope, but having the context for like why that's important so that Charles doesn't become the glue that people get stuck in. He becomes the glue that holds us together. So that I don't do the same thing to my level designers where I say, hey, I'm going to give y'all enough space to play so that there's a creative box defined for you to go sicko mode in and use your hours to be in that sicko mode. It is like the studio, as much as like you're designing it, Xalavier, is also something that like evolves because all of us are here. And the fact that these games are small and made by smaller groups of people, figuring this shit out as we go is I think what has led to Strange Scaffold being such a special place for me is I get to grow alongside the studio, alongside all of you, and the games and the experience of making those games gets better as we're given the space to grow and make mistakes and learn why all of this shit is really important for getting these games out on time, because I want you all to live happy, full, healthy lives that are not just full of making games 60
Or
hours
else.
a week.
Or else.
I wanted to basically wrap on that point
That
because
was beautifully
it's,
put.
yeah, I was going to say it's basically something I've discussed with Manda recently. Actually, is my own personal way, because obviously you have to worry about everything to do with a studio. I think if you care about it a lot and you do agree, like you say, with that sort of, this is a very special place in a very difficult time. A thing that always worried me was the idea of brain drain with the idea of a constellation system that you've talked about a lot, Xalavier, and that we've always kind of, when I joined, that was kind of how it worked. But I feel a lot more comfortable and hopeful in the idea that all these lessons and all this new stuff is being learned by people that are then moving on to new projects and taking that into those new projects in a healthier way.
A lot of
very
that is
good.
very it's very
Oh,
design.
Oh, sorry, Candace, you're kind of breaking up.
No.
So you just have to get closer to your microphone. That's
Okay. A lot of that is very intentional, especially moving into these next projects of Baby and Truck, of something that Xalavier and I talked a lot about as we were preparing production cycles for these was, hey, I want to keep these teams together, because we can't make games quickly if we don't know who we're working with.
Mm-hmm.
Second thing, though, was we also still wanted to, because Colin was talking about evolving context, we also still wanted to create intentional space for new people to come in and balancing both of those. Like, keep these teams together, keep lessons flowing between people who haven't worked before, but also, have really consistent, having some consistency.
Yeah, and it's great to know that, like, oh, Dan is working on Baby, and I'm working on Truck, and then we're both going to be on El Paso Elsewhere. So we get some time to go work on new stuff and get new context away from each other, and then come back, and it's like, hey, Dan, how you been since the last time we worked on a game together? Like, let's ship this one too. That'll be sick. And knowing that I have that to look forward to, is something that the rest of the game industry cannot offer me right now.
And that's
God, no.
fair. And I want to work with everybody at this studio. Like, I have had, this is what, my third explicit production, I think, with Strange Scaffold. And we had such a great time on Turtles in so many ways that I'm like, okay, I'm going to go take this to the rest of the studio now. How many more people can I take with me and show them the ways of Trello, show them the ways of Manda.
That's been huge.
And if you want to support this game development process, did you know that
Patreon.com.
Strange Scaffold recently revamped their Patreon?
Hey, there you are. Please do. We have a Patreon. It's
Art's
been,
really cute.
Really, the art's
good.
amazing. Fucking Krista's
Oh
so
my
good
gosh,
at that stuff.
Krista's
but
amazing.
Cristo
Yeah.
Paolucci.
yes, the best. My favorite of all the people
True.
called Krista. I realized I said my favorite. That sounded just harsh on everyone else. It's like, my
That's fair.
favorite of all
Everyone
of
just
you.
No, that's
disconnects from
real.
the call.
And all these other
That's real.
losers.
I like to know my position in my friendship hierarchies.
Yes.
If I'm told I'm like 7th, there's a piece in that.
Yeah, we got to get
Yeah.
back.
You don't have to worry. You're
Yeah,
on
we
the
gotta
list.
we gotta
but,
get back
like-
on MySpace just for this.
Well,
Who's my top 8, bitch? Let's go.
Who's my
I
Blue
missed
Sky
that.
top 10?
oh, I miss that so much. Being able to put your own music on a profile, like.